Recently, my parents surprised me, 26 male, and my siblings, mid-teen and 19, with a ski trip this December, the day after Christmas. My parents offered to pay for my expenses and said my wife, 24, was welcome to come, but she would need to pay her way. My wife and I are okay financially, but with the trip being so close to Christmas, we wouldn't be able to afford to pay for her to go. Despite this, I really wanted to go on the trip, as it was always a dream of mine to go on a trip like this. My family grew up dirt poor until I was about 15 when my parents' business took off, and now they're extremely comfortable and can afford to pay for trips like this for us. They could certainly afford to pay for my wife to go, but they've always been this way when it comes to paying things for me versus my wife. My parents think it's only fair to pay for me when we eat or go on trips because they still pay for my siblings. I don't ask them to, but it's nice to save money, so on every trip, they'll pay my way, room and board, excursions, meals, while my wife is expected to pay her way. This started before we were married. This has always bothered my wife, especially after we got married and they still excluded her. So in these past 2 years since we married, I tried to limit the trips since they bother her so much, but this is a once-in-a-lifetime trip for me, so I thought she would be supportive of me going. But she's very upset and hurt. She wants to go on the trip, but as I said, we just can't afford it, which she understands. She told me she does want me to have this experience, but she's sad because she thinks my parents purposefully exclude her. Am I the idiot for choosing to go on the trip and leave her behind? I still have time to cancel on my parents, but I know they would be sad. Well, apparently your parents being sad trumps your wife being hurt by your parents' deliberate hurtful actions to exclude her. You're well aware that your parents are intentionally excluding your wife, and apparently this is definitely not the first time, and you don't understand why she's so hurt and upset about this, especially when it's during Christmas. Think about it, dude. Think about it really hard. You are the idiot. Seriously, you're a 26-year-old grown man. Worry about upsetting your wife, not mommy and daddy. Also, the way he says that she would have to pay her own way. Nah, dude, you're a package deal. If your parents only pay 50% of your costs for going together, then you as a couple have to pay the other 50%. It's absolutely not her alone. I wonder if they'll pay for his divorce. This could be happening sooner than later. They will. These types of in-laws are always willing to pay for divorce attorneys. My ex's parents were. You are the idiot, OP. Are you kidding? Once in a lifetime is supposed to happen with the person who you're spending your life with. This has always bothered my wife. Why isn't it bothering you? Family trips include the entire family. Your entire family is you and your wife. Going on this trip is a mistake for you, in my opinion. For your wife, it might be the time she needs to gain perspective on how much she can depend on you, her partner. Right? This would bother me immensely. I can't even imagine my parents doing this to my wife. I would not take a trip without her, especially during the holidays. It would be so sad. It's so cheap and tacky of his parents, and I would be embarrassed and tell them to either extend the invitation to both of us or not at all. Also, it's a ski trip. They must not be that damn rich if it's once in a lifetime. Why on earth would they pay for you and not your wife? That's absurd. What's their logic? They want to ensure the wife understands that they don't consider her part of the family. Also to show her repeatedly that her husband loves them more than he loves her, and he loves the money and trips more than he loves his wife. Honestly, OP should go on the trip and tell his wife up front, me having a good time and getting what I want will always be more important than supporting you, and my parents' cruel whims will always be more important than your feelings. It would be the kind of hard slap of reality we sometimes need to see that the person we gave ourselves to will never give anything back, and his wife deserves to waste as little of her future with him as possible. This happened in October and my daughter is still acting cold and hardly speaking to me. My daughter, Teen, works an after-school job 5 days a week. Her high school had a costume contest for Halloween. My daughter and her friends planned a group costume to enter. She went with her friends after school to buy costumes. I picked her and her friends up from the store and they showed me their costumes. My daughter spent $80 on hers. I was angry. That's a lot of money to spend on something you're going to wear for a few hours. Very irresponsible use of money. I told her as much in the car and told her it was ridiculous. I dropped her friends off and took her back to the store to return the costume and accessories. Her friends found someone else to take her place in the group, and they won the contest and a $100 Visa gift card to split. My daughter came home from school on Halloween upset. She claimed she had to sit and watch while her friends had fun, and she missed out on everything. I pointed out to her that after splitting the gift card, it would be way less than she spent on the costume, and it was only a few hours, but she didn't want to listen to reason. Now, months later, and she's still moody and mostly ignoring me. My ex-husband told me I made her miss out, and she worked so much that she missed out on a lot of stuff with her friends, and I could have let her have this. But at the end of the day, I saved her $80. I'm just trying to teach my daughter how to be responsible with money. She could have gotten a cheap costume, especially since she would have only worn it for a few hours. You are the idiot. Your daughter works. She earns money. Her money. As long as her obligations are taken care of, what does it matter if she splurges $80 on a costume? She can reuse it another time. Just being her parent doesn't give you control of the money she earns through her work. Congrats, you just strained your relationship with your daughter for $80 that weren't ever yours. I hope it was worth it. What you wanted to teach your daughter, the value of saving. What she learned, her mother cares more about money than friendships and her daughter's happiness. Furthermore, you taught her that you would micromanage her until she moved out. Congratulations, your lesson on $80 will prompt her to spend that money on rent, utilities and groceries at her first opportunity. Hopefully one of her friends will be her roommate. She had spent her own money on the costume, and the point of the contest was to have fun with her friends. The $100 prize was irrelevant. $80 for a wonderful memory and experience. Unfortunately, she will never forget this Halloween and how you ruined it for her. How often have you looked back on your childhood and remembered how your parent destroyed a fun moment? You took away memories and experiences and wonderful friendship bonding moments for $80. I can't wait for the day you tell her not to bother with a graduation gown or bridal dress or anything else that she'll only spend a few hours in because the memories aren't worth the money. Go and apologize to your daughter. I, female 30, run a small online business from home. November and December are my busiest time of the year. This year I moved in with my boyfriend, 35. Well, technically he moved in with me because I own the house, so it was a no-brainer for him to move in with me. We split chores half and half. He works full-time, 37.5 hours a week. When he moved in, I let him know that I couldn't do any chores in November, December, and asked if he could pick up the slack because I'm physically unable to do any chores, as I can be working anything between 12 to 18 hours a day. I take a full January off to decompress. He said he doubted I worked that much, but we will see. I asked again in September and October to make sure he was aware that I wouldn't be doing anything. I meal prepped in advance, and I felt he kind of dismissed me. Mid-November we argued about my chores not being done, and I reminded him of what I told him. He said that he thought I wasn't being serious and told me there was no way he'd do 100% of the chores because he was working too. I said fine, don't do my chores, they can wait until I have time. That's how it was when I lived alone, no problem, I don't make much mess anyway. He wasn't happy but dropped it. We haven't seen each other much because I've been working so much, but he's been more and more angry and blew up at me today regarding the chores. He said I had to have a better work-life balance and grow up because the house was a mess. I told him it was his fault if it was a mess because I had barely left my office. He called me a lazy witch. Finally, I told him I didn't have time to argue and went back to work. He stood in front of my locked office door shouting how he couldn't believe I was being serious about not doing chores and it was an idiot move to leave it all to him. He thinks I'm a major idiot for basically disappearing for 2 months and following through with not doing chores. Am I really the idiot for saying I won't do chores and follow through? Not the idiot. Wow, anyone who called me a lazy witch for refusing to clean up their mess when I was working 12 to 18-hour days would be out of my house so fast that the door would hit them on the way out. Your boyfriend is showing his true colours. Believe him. I know that right now you don't have the time to rearrange your life, but once January comes around, you should give yourself the gift of losing the deadbeat boyfriend. For what it's worth, I'm married, and my husband and I had gone through times when we had to pick up the slack for each other for whatever reason. And it's not always a work reason. There could be health issues, the birth of a child, travel, and a billion other things that come up. Instead, your boyfriend is showing you that he will throw a fit and call you names whenever he needs to support you. This is bad. Bad. Should be a deal breaker. If you stay with him, this will be your life every winter for the rest of your life. I also get the feeling this guy will try and make it even after this by making you do all the chores for the next few months. Also, he should be paying rent. Doesn't matter that you own the house outright. You told him repeatedly He chose to blow that off. Then, when the reality hit of what you'd repeatedly told him, he called you names and told you to grow up in your house. It's not even about whether you can do the chores or not. It's about how he handles things if he doesn't want to hear, and how he reacts and treats you when the reality hits the fan. I'd be rethinking the whole relationship. You definitely deserve better, OP. My 30 female husband, 49, and I've been married for 2 years. We have a baby that's almost a year old. I have 2 kids, Rory, male tween, and Emily, female the same age as Rory, of my own. My husband has 2 sons from a previous marriage, young male teens. My kids had to share a room since they were born, but once I got married, we moved to a bigger house and they could have their own rooms. My daughter was happy about it, but my son had difficulty adapting to it. He didn't like being alone, and he got scared a lot, crying all night and peeing himself, but he eventually adapted to the new reality and has been more stable. My husband's sister is getting married in Hawaii, and the whole family is going there for a big destination wedding. The idea was for the kids to share rooms in sets of 2. Emily would have to stay with one of my husband's nieces. Rory would share with one of his stepbrothers and the other one with another cousin. But that didn't work. Rory says he doesn't want to share a room with any of his stepbrothers because they smell bad. He told me to let him stay with his sister, but Emily didn't want that. The only other option was to put him with one of the other male cousins, but he warned me that if it turned out that they also smelled bad, he would refuse to stay in the room once we were there and go sleep in the rainforest. Finally, I begged my husband to pay for another room so Rory could be alone and I wouldn't have to suffer anymore. But now, Emily's mad because she says it's unfair that her brother will have his own room, but she has to share with a cousin she doesn't know. I think she should understand that her brother has a more challenging time in this kind of situation than her and not make everything even more difficult for me. Emily is a really social and extroverted girl. She didn't complain about this issue before. I feel she's just being petty, but now she's angry with me and I don't know what else to do. Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. Have you ever considered parenting your son? Nope. Too busy making a baby and new family with your much older and likely wealthier new husband? You've done about as poor a job of blending this family as possible. Your son gets rewarded for acting up and your daughter is left behind because she doesn't complain enough. You are not parenting your son and it's your daughter that suffers the consequences. They smell bad is not a flipping excuse. Let him sleep in the rainforest. Who's in charge here? You or your tween? It sounds like your son calls the shots, not you. Well, of course the boy has a hard time adjusting at this age if he gets whatever he wants because he claims others smell bad, or you let yourself get threatened by him. Your son learned one thing: whine and moan until he gets what he wants, and it worked perfectly. Your daughter gets a worse situation because she did what she was told the first time. Stop trying to be your son's best friend and start being a parent. I'm one of 6 kids, but this story is about my younger brother, 40. I have 4 kids. My brother has 5. We don't get together often because my girls and his oldest don't get along and because we're a 4 hours plane ride from each other. My son's birthday is around Thanksgiving. We're always with my family on Thanksgiving and we always have a big family party for his birthday. My brother is a busy person, he owns a large company, so I was asking him what day he'd be available for the party. Unfortunately, he wasn't available any day, which I thought was weird, considering he always tries to meet with me and the rest of our family around Thanksgiving. Then I got a text from a mutual friend asking what I was wearing to my brother's wedding, and if I had any ideas for a gift since she couldn't find a registry. I asked her what she was talking about, and my friend told me he was getting married. I didn't even know he was engaged. He told us last year that he was in a relationship and that they just had a child together, but nothing about getting married. After some digging, I discovered that the wedding would be on my son's birthday, and only 2 of our siblings and their kids were invited. I thought this was incredibly rude of him, so I told the entire family at Thanksgiving that he was getting married, when and where. Some family members made an appearance at his wedding, and he found out I was the one who told them about it. He called me the next day, screaming at me for ruining his wedding, and then blocked me on everything. I'm starting to feel bad, so I wanted to know if I was the idiot. Edit: my brother didn't want a small wedding. There were at least 300 or 400 people at the wedding. Second, the wedding was on my son's birthday, which was very close to Thanksgiving. You are the idiot, holy moly. Clearly, he has a reason for not inviting you and the other family. Maybe do some self-reflection on that. You maliciously told your family. They crashed his wedding. I hope your apples fall far away from the tree. Yeah, I'm also not buying the excuse, well, I only told them because it's my kid's birthday. Nah, OP told everyone because OP found out they weren't invited to a wedding they didn't know about via text and acted like a child. No wonder he didn't invite them. I'd be livid if someone told the toxic members of my family I was getting married. The fact that they actually went, not being invited, says a ton about how toxic they are. Never disrespect someone's right to go no contact. OP, did you ever stop to think that he had his reasons for not wanting certain people there? Of course not. You chose to disclose this information because of your childish reaction to his not wanting you there. I'm sure he has very valid reasons for not wanting you there. Newsflash, the world does not revolve around you or your son's birthday. Congrats on destroying your relationship with your brother.